Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I remember the exact moment everything changed, not with an explosion, but with a sentence. We were in the kitchen. She had her glass of Pinot Grigio in one hand, her other thumb mindlessly scrolling through her phone. I'd just finished rinsing the dishes, my tie still on from work, a tired smile on my face, and I asked her something simple. Want to watch a movie together tonight? Just us. She didn't even look up. I'm not responsible for your happiness, she said. Just like that. I paused, hands still damp, trying to convince myself I had misheard her. But the tone in her voice wasn't playful. It wasn't sarcastic. It wasn't even frustrated. It was cold, detached, like a manager rejecting a late PTO request. I should have asked her what she meant, pressed her for clarification. But I didn't. I stood there, nodding slowly, something turning over in my chest, a key twisting in a lock. The words echoed inside me, louder than they should have been. I'm not responsible for your happiness. The strange part? She said it like it was empowering, like she was teaching me some philosophical truth I'd foolishly ignored all these years. But I wasn't expecting philosophy from the woman I married. I was expecting love. I let the water run over my hands longer than I needed to, just to have something to do. And when I finally turned off the faucet, I didn't say another word. I just grabbed a towel, dried my hands, and left the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my body in bed but my mind pacing in circles. That sentence, it wasn't just some offhand remark. It was a revelation, a confession, a declaration that she had tapped out of us. I kept replaying the last few months in my head. Her distance, her lack of interest, how date nights turned into solo dinners, how intimacy became mechanical or avoided altogether. I chalked it up to stress, work, hormones, a phase. But what if it wasn't? What if that sentence had been a door swinging open to the truth, that she had quietly redefined what this marriage meant without telling me? I started remembering little moments, noticing how she'd stopped reaching for my hand when we walked together, how she'd laugh louder at texts from people I didn't know, how she didn't bother closing the laptop when I entered the room anymore. And I remembered something else, her recent fixation with self-care, not the healthy kind, the narcissistic, Instagram inspirational kind that always seemed to end with her buying things we couldn't afford or disappearing for hours at a time without explanation. She'd tell her friends she was on a journey to rediscover herself. But rediscovering herself apparently meant losing interest in me. I was the guy who made the car payments, who fixed the broken sink, who remembered her mother's birthday when she forgot. I kept things running so she could explore. And for a long time, I did it gladly. But that night, staring up at the dark ceiling, something inside me settled. I realized I had been treating her happiness like it was mine to protect and mine to fund. I had mistaken codependence for partnership. So maybe she was right. But that also meant something else. Her joy, her comfort, her peace. Maybe those weren't my responsibility either. I didn't bring it up the next day, or the day after that. I just watched. Quietly, closely. I noticed the way she only made coffee for herself now. How she ordered dinner without asking what I wanted. How she started referring to her money and my obligations. It was like living with someone who'd already divorced you in her head. And I couldn't stop wondering, when had I become so optional? One afternoon, I walked into the room and she was laughing on the phone. Laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. Not the polite, tight-lipped chuckle she reserved for me lately, but a full, open laugh. The kind that comes from the chest. She turned her back when she saw me. That night, I overheard her talking to someone on speakerphone in the bathroom while she dried her hair. She didn't know I was outside the door. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I just froze when I heard her say it. He's just heavy. Like emotionally. It's exhausting. I can't be everything for him. The voice on the other end, her sister, I think, said something I didn't catch, but they both laughed. And I stood there, heartbeat in my throat, wondering how long she'd felt this way. I didn't slam the door open or demand an explanation. I just walked away, down the stairs, out the front door, into the cold night air. And I made a quiet promise to myself. If I truly was not her responsibility, then starting now, neither was she mine. I didn't make a speech, didn't announce my change of heart, or lay out a dramatic ultimatum. That wasn't my style, and it certainly wouldn't have made a difference to her. I just adjusted. At first, it was small things. I stopped asking what she wanted for dinner and started cooking for myself. Just one plate. No more, ours. I folded my own laundry and left hers where it landed. She used to leave wet towels on the bed. I let them sit. I used to wipe the counters after she made a mess in the kitchen. Now I walked past them without a glance. The first few days, she didn't say anything. She barely noticed. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, the house had a different energy now, less like a home, more like a shared Airbnb where the guests stopped caring about the 5-star rating. She started to notice around day 4. "Are you not doing the recycling anymore?" she asked, standing over 2 overflowing bins. "I assume since it's not my job to make you happy, it's probably not my job to sort your wine bottles either," I said without looking up from my book. She stared at me for a beat, lips parting like she might protest. But then she said nothing and walked away. That became a pattern. She would try to pull the thread and find there was nothing on the other end. I went to the gym more. Started sleeping better. Not because I was over it, but because I wasn't staying up late wondering what I had done wrong anymore. I knew what I had done. I had loved her. Completely. Blindly. And maybe that was the real problem. She was used to being everything. The center. The storm. But I had stopped orbiting her, and she didn't know how to handle the silence. There was a Saturday morning, bright, clear, a perfect day for brunch, and she came downstairs wearing a dress she hadn't touched in months. The kind of dress that used to make me stop whatever I was doing and just stare. "Do I look okay in this?" she asked, casually, pretending to check her reflection in the microwave door. "You always look good," I said plainly, without looking. Not great. Not stunning. Not gorgeous. Just good. And I meant it. She looked good. But something had dimmed. Not in her appearance, but in my instinct to romanticize her. She didn't respond. She just lingered by the fridge, waiting for something else, some recognition, some validation, but I didn't offer it. She poured her coffee in silence, took one sip, then dumped the rest down the sink. That was new. At work, I started saying yes to late projects. I joined my team for drinks instead of rushing home. When she texted to ask where I was at 10 p.m., I didn't lie. I just told her the truth. Out. With coworkers. I'll be home later. There was no "love you." No "miss you." No emojis. And it must have bothered her, because she started texting more. Just little things. "Did you eat? What are you doing? Should I wait for you?" She never used to ask. She used to assume I'd orbit back to her on schedule. Now she wasn't sure if I would. And then came the dinner. She made it. A full meal. Spaghetti, garlic bread, her signature Caesar salad. I came home late and found the table set, 2 candles flickering like old memories trying to stay alive. I stood in the doorway, staring at it for a moment. "You didn't have to do all this," I said, genuinely confused. She gave a small shrug, the kind that masks hope behind indifference. "Well, I figured we hadn't sat down together in a while." We sat. We ate. She asked me how my day was, and I told her. But the words were surface level, like skipping stones on a lake. I didn't dive deep. I didn't give her the stories I used to save for her. After dinner, she cleared the plates while I rinsed mine and left it in the dishwasher. Just mine. Later that night, she slid into bed and pressed her back against me like she used to. I felt the warmth of her shoulder brush mine, waiting. I didn't move. She whispered, "Are you awake?" I said nothing. She waited a little longer. Then she sighed, turned back over, and didn't speak again. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the same one I had once stared at while wondering how to fix us. But now? Now I was wondering what it would feel like to not have to try anymore. That night, I dreamed of silence. Not the cold, bitter kind, but the peaceful kind. The kind that doesn't beg to be filled. Things didn't unravel with fireworks. They came apart like threads loosening one by one, quiet, persistent, and irreversible. By week 3, she had begun doing that thing where she tried to look effortlessly cheerful. She hummed while making coffee, left her hair down the way she knew I liked, through casual mentions of her gym workouts or how many steps she hit on her watch, as if I was still keeping track. I wasn't. Her voice had picked up that slight extra pitch too, one people use when they're trying to sound happier than they are. It wasn't that I didn't notice it. I did. I just didn't react. And that was the problem. Or the shift. Maybe both. One evening, I came home to find her on the phone in the living room, laughter echoing a little too loudly through the house. I could tell by the way her legs were crossed, tight, elegant, that she was performing. The laughter stopped the moment she saw me. She ended the call quickly, then asked, "Want to sit with me for a bit?" "No, I'm heading to the garage. Got a few things to work on." She blinked. Not offended. Just surprised. I didn't lie. I really had started working on that old project car, I'd let sit for 2 years. Something about restoring something else felt poetic, though I didn't say that out loud. What I noticed, though, was that she started to check in more. Need anything from the store? I saw that brand of whiskey you like was on sale. You okay? You seem distant. I told her the truth each time. Nope. I'm good. No thanks. Just tired. It was about a week later when her sister called me. The phone lit up late one evening as I was watching a documentary with a glass of bourbon in hand. I hesitated before answering. I hadn't spoken to Carly in over a year. Hey, is everything okay? I asked. Carly's voice was cautious but pointed. I'm just gonna be real with you, because I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. What's going on between you two? I kept my voice even. You'd have to ask your sister. She says you've pulled away completely, that you're emotionally gone. I mean, are you trying to punish her, or what? I let the question sit there for a second, then said, do you know what she told me? One night, out of nowhere, she said she's not responsible for my happiness. Carly didn't respond. So I agreed. I added quietly. I stopped expecting anything from her, and stopped giving her things she never valued. A sigh on the other end of the line. She didn't tell me that, she said finally. She acts like she doesn't know what she did wrong. She never wanted to carry my joy, I said. And now I've stopped carrying hers. There was a pause. Then, almost reluctantly, she thought if she gave you space, you'd chase her. That's the problem, I replied. I used to. But now I don't want someone who has to be chased. I thanked Carly for calling, but I think she already knew she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She said goodbye like someone apologizing for being too late to stop a fire. The next morning, my wife set 2 mugs on the counter instead of 1. I'm making breakfast, she said. Thought maybe we could eat together. Thanks, but I've already got plans, I said, grabbing my keys. She looked down at the eggs she hadn't cracked yet. Plans? Yeah, I'm meeting someone for a hike. You know, trying to take better care of myself. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Someone? She echoed, voice carefully neutral. I didn't flinch. A guy from work. Chill. I wasn't lying. I just didn't correct the assumption forming in her mind. Let her sit with that for a while. But something changed after that. Not in me, in her. She became sharper, less passive. One night she snapped. So, what? You're just not going to try anymore. I looked at her for the first time in days, really looked. You stopped trying a long time ago. I just finally matched your energy. Her lips pressed into a thin line. But she didn't argue. She didn't apologize either. That was the night she came to bed fully dressed and lay stiffly on her side, as far from me as the mattress allowed. She didn't touch me, didn't speak, just lay there like a stranger who'd taken a wrong turn in the dark and found herself in a house that used to feel like home. And I stared at the ceiling, wondering if maybe we'd finally arrived at the same page. Not forgiveness, just indifference. And in that silence, I slept better than I had in years. It didn't take long for her to crack. The next weekend, she made a show of dressing up, heels, full makeup, that fitted navy blue dress she used to save for special dinners. I watched her descend the stairs like she was auditioning for someone, but I wasn't sure who. Want to come with me? She asked, adjusting her earring by the front mirror. Thought we could try that new Mediterranean place. You said you liked Greek food, remember? I did like Greek food, but the way she said it felt artificial, like she was testing something, not inviting me. No thanks, I said. I've already eaten. She faltered for a moment, lips parting like she was about to say something else, but all that came out was a curt, suit yourself. The door shut behind her with more force than necessary. I didn't even flinch. Later that night, I scrolled through Instagram and saw a photo she had posted, some dim restaurant with string lights and wine glasses, the caption beneath it trying too hard. Taking myself out. Happiness starts within. And yet, the angle, the pose, the forced smile told a different story. She wasn't taking herself out. She was trying to reel me back in. It got worse when she tried a new tactic, faux vulnerability. She sat beside me one night while I was finishing up work on my laptop. No pretense this time. No makeup. Just an old hoodie and a trimmer in her voice. I know things have been off between us, she said. I feel it too. I looked up slowly, carefully, like someone disabling a trap. Off? I asked. She nodded, searching my face. I want to know what happened. When we stopped being us. I closed my laptop gently. We didn't stop being us. You stopped being part of us. She blinked. That's not fair. It's true. I didn't pull away until you made it clear my needs were mine alone to deal with. She said nothing, just stared at the floor. Then came the pivot I'd been expecting. I met someone, she said. She said it so quietly, I almost asked her to repeat it. But I heard it. I didn't sleep with him. Not yet. But we talked. Texted. It felt safe. He listened. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I was scared. She looked at me then, eyes brimming, not with guilt, but with calculation. She thought this confession would shock me into chasing her again, into reclaiming her. She didn't realize that this was her final misread. I nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. Her brow furrowed. That's it. You already told me you weren't responsible for my happiness. I believed you. And now I believe you weren't interested in protecting our marriage either. A pause. So, what? You don't care. I cared, I said, when it would have mattered. But now? No. I don't care what you do with him. She blinked back something, tears or fury. I couldn't tell. You're punishing me. I shook my head. I'm just mirroring you. I stopped investing in someone who cashed out long before I did. She stood up slowly, as if the air had thickened around her. I didn't think you could be so cold. I looked at her, unblinking. You didn't think I'd ever believe you. She left the room in silence, but I knew she wasn't done. Later that week, she came home early, clearly flustered, slammed her bag down on the kitchen counter and said, I went to see a therapist today. I didn't respond, just kept peeling the apple in my hand. She says you've emotionally detached and that maybe we need marriage counseling. Maybe, I said, but I don't think it's a marriage anymore. She sucked in a breath, like the truth finally hit her ribs. Are you ending this? I'm preparing, I said. Quietly. I've been documenting, saving, reviewing our finances. I have copies of everything. I'm not here to punish you. I'm just preparing for what comes next. She opened her mouth but couldn't find words. I picked up my apple slice and walked past her. That night, I got a call from someone unexpected, her mother. Do you have a moment? She asked, cautious but curious. Sure. I'm not taking sides, she began, which was always the sign that someone was about to take sides. But I think you should know. She told me she started talking to that guy from work because she thought you were going to leave her. She panicked. I stayed silent. She didn't think you'd actually stop caring, her mother said, voice quiet. She always said she needed to be wanted. And now that you're not reacting, she's unraveling. I thanked her. But I didn't say much else. What I wanted to say was this. I stopped reacting the day she stopped respecting. I ended the call and stood in the hallway, listening to the muffled sound of my wife crying behind a locked door. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the urge to go in. I filed the paperwork on a Wednesday. No drama. No confrontation. Just a quiet trip to my lawyer's office, signatures scribbled over paragraphs I had read and reread for weeks. The documents weren't vindictive. They were calm, clean, and impossible to argue with, just like I'd become. By the time she was served, I had already cleared out my side of the closet. Not in anger, just preparation. I wasn't leaving that day, but I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to feel the absence. She came home from a lunch with her sister, found the manila envelope on the kitchen counter, and went still. I stood in the living room, packing a small box of books. I didn't even flinch when she spoke. You're really doing this? I nodded once. Yeah. Her breath caught like she had something stuck in her throat. This is a mistake, she said, stepping forward. We're just going through something. This is normal. Marriages go through rough patches. You're not wrong, I said. But rough patches require two people willing to walk through them. You checked out a long time ago and left me in the storm. Her eyes watered, but I didn't trust the tears. Not anymore. You never told me you were hurting. I did. Over and over. You said it wasn't your job to fix me. You were right. She shook her head like she was trying to wake up from a bad dream. I didn't mean it like that. I was frustrated. I thought if I pulled away, you'd try harder. And I did. Until I realized I was chasing someone who liked being chased more than being caught. Her face crumpled. So what? That's it. You're just going to throw everything away. I stared at her. This woman I had loved, sacrificed for, forgiven more than once. No, I said. I'm walking away from what you already threw away. I'm just the last to admit it. She tried reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. Please, she whispered. I didn't know how far I'd pushed you. That's the point, I said. You weren't paying attention. We stood there for a long time, silence heavy between us. Then I left her with the box of papers and walked out into the fading afternoon light. A week later, I moved into a small apartment near the river. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The walls were quiet. The bed didn't feel like a negotiation. I cooked what I wanted, played music without judgment, slept without pretending. Some nights I lay awake and remembered her, not the arguments, not the emotional vacancy, but the small good things. Her laugh during old comedies. The way she used to trace circles on my hand when we watched TV. I let myself grieve that version of her. Not to get her back, but to let her go properly. Then one morning, I got a text. I cleaned out the garage. There are a few of your things I left by the front door. I didn't throw them away. I stared at the screen, rereading the last sentence. I didn't throw them away. A little too proud. A little too late. I replied. Thanks. I'll pick them up this weekend. She wrote back. I miss you. I didn't know I would. But I did. Of course I did. That weekend, when I showed up to grab the boxes, she opened the door wearing an old sweatshirt of mine, the sleeves pulled over her hands. Her hair was undone. Her eyes had that raw, sleepless look I used to carry. We stood across from each other for a moment. I thought we had more time, she said. I gave a small smile, half compassion, half closure. We did. You just didn't think time would run out. She tried to respond, but her voice cracked, and she nodded instead. I picked up the boxes, thanked her, and left. And as I walked down the steps and out into the street, I realized something. She had finally learned what it felt like to be on the other side of silence. To offer warmth and find the space already cold. To reach out and realize someone's joy no longer waits for you at the door. She once told me she wasn't responsible for my happiness. And I believed her. But now she knew the rest of that truth. Her happiness? That wasn't my responsibility anymore either.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.